There are two types of slavery. One has chains you can see. The other has promises you believe. Claire Donovan was 22 years old when Margaret Thornton offered what seemed like the opportunity of a lifetime. It was 2007, and Claire was working 3 jobs to pay for business school, sleeping for hours a night, desperate for a break. "You have something rare," Margaret said from behind her mahogany desk overlooking Boston. "Intelligence, work ethic, ambition. I need someone who really wants to be part of this company's growth. In 5 years, if you prove your worth, we'll talk about partnership." Real partnership, Claire. A stake in the company. Partnership. The word hung in the air like a sacred promise. Claire accepted immediately. She started the next Monday and dove in with obsessive dedication. 7 in the morning until midnight. Weekends. Holidays. She worked. When the company faced a crisis in her 3rd year, Claire stayed in the office for 72 hours straight, restructuring contracts that saved a $1 million client. "You're indispensable," Margaret would say, and Claire glowed. But years passed, and the partnership conversation never came. Every time Claire mentioned it, Margaret had an excuse. Not the right time yet. One more strong year. The board isn't convinced. Claire believed. She saw the results of her work, the clients she landed, the contracts she negotiated, the crises she resolved. She was the operational heart of the company. It was just a matter of time, wasn't it? At Vinci Yoita, she lost her feet. James couldn't stand being second to her work. At 32, her mother got cancer. Claire flew to Vermont, stayed 3 days, then returned when Margaret called about an important merger. Her mother died 6 months later while Claire was in a meeting. She finished the meeting before collapsing in the company bathroom. At 35, she had an anxiety attack so severe she woke up in the hospital. At 37, Margaret hired her nephew Preston, fresh out of college with 0 experience. "Could you train him?" Margaret asked. And Claire did, because that's what she always did. She obeyed. She worked. She believed. Preston was incompetent and arrogant, taking credit for her work while arriving at noon and leaving at 5. Claire kept her brutal schedule. Then one night, working late, Claire overheard voices in Margaret's office. The door was ajar. Margaret and her husband Richard. "You need to do something about Claire," Richard said. "She's asking questions about equity." "I know how to handle Claire." Margaret's voice was ice cold. "Make vague promises. Praise her work. Make her feel special." "She's pathetic, really. So desperate for approval, she's never questioned why she's still in the same position after 15 years. Margaret laughed. "The truth is, Claire is too valuable doing exactly what she's doing. She works like a partner, but costs like an employee. It's the best deal I ever made. What about the partnership you promised? Please." There was never any real intention. That was just motivation. "Preston will take over when I retire. It's in the will. Always has been." Claire stood paralyzed in the hallway, each word falling like bricks. That night, sitting on the cold office floor after everyone left, she finally understood. 15 years. Wasted. Building someone else's dream on a promise that was never real. She had sacrificed relationships, health, her mother's final moments, all for a lie. She wasn't indispensable. She was exploitable. Claire didn't sleep that night. But something had changed inside her. The pain was transforming into something denser, colder, calculated anger, the anger that builds empires instead of burning them down. If Margaret thought she had broken Claire Donovan, she was terribly mistaken. Claire had spent 15 years learning every secret of that company, every weakness, every valuable contact. And now she was going to use that knowledge to build something of her own. Claire spent weeks living a perfect lie. By day, the same dedicated employee. By night, she worked on something different. She analyzed everything she had access to over the years. The truth became crystal clear. 70% of Thornton and Associates' most profitable clients had been brought in by her. Proposals she wrote, relationships she cultivated, crises she resolved. She hadn't just worked for Margaret. She had been the architect of the company's growth for 10 years. At a conference in New York, Claire met Diane Wu, a partner at a venture capital firm specializing in women-led ventures. Over drinks, Claire was honest about her situation. 15 years of unfulfilled promises, working without equity, watching less qualified men get promoted. How many of those clients are loyal to Margaret versus loyal to the person who actually solves their problems? Gianni asked. That question changed everything. In the following weeks, they met discreetly, Claire brought analyses, projections, strategies. She showed exactly what she could build with resources and freedom. "You're presenting a business plan," Diane said, impressed. "A solid one." "I'm presenting an opportunity," Claire corrected. "For 15 years, I built someone else's company. It's time to build my own." Diane smiled. "I need to know if you really have the courage. Because this will be war. Margaret will try to destroy you." Claire thought about 15 years. Her mother dying while she was in a meeting, the sleepless nights, the anxiety attacks, the years that would never return. "She already tried to destroy me," Claire said calmly. "She just did it so slowly I didn't notice." 2 months later, Claire had everything in place. Diane secured $800,000 in investment. Claire had a business plan, a registered LLC called Donovan Strategic Solutions, a small office, and preliminary conversations with 5 of Thornton and Associates' biggest clients. On a cold Monday in January, Claire walked into Margaret's office and placed a white envelope on her desk. "My resignation. Effective immediately. I'm opening my own consulting firm." The silence was thick enough to cut. "You can't do this." Margaret's face turned red. "There's a non-compete agreement already analyzed by lawyers. It's too broad, too restrictive, and considering I was never promoted beyond executive assistant despite executive functions, it's not applicable. You won't get any clients. No one will want to work with a dishonest assistant." And there it was. 15 years summarized in one sentence. Just an assistant. Disposable. "We'll see," Claire said softly. She turned to leave, then stopped. "Oh, and Margaret. That night, 3 months ago, when you and Richard were discussing how to keep motivating me with false promises, your office door was open. I heard every word." The color drained from Margaret's face. Claire left the building for the last time, breathing in the cold January air. It was liberating and terrifying. The first 3 months were a nightmare. Margaret launched a systematic campaign of destruction. Clients who had shown interest suddenly stopped returning calls. Margaret was calling them personally, threatening to sue anyone who worked with Claire, claiming she stole proprietary information. "She's defaming you," Diane said. "You can sue her." "With what money?" Claire responded bitterly. Doubt consumed her. Maybe Margaret was right. Maybe she was just an overrated assistant. Maybe 15 years of taking orders had made her incapable of really leading. It was her sister Emily who saved her. They hadn't spoken much since their mother's death, but Emily showed up with wine and food. "When Mom was dying and you weren't there, I hated you," Emily said. But Mom didn't. She said, "Claire is searching for something. I hope she finds it before it's too late. I hope she discovers she doesn't need anyone's approval to be extraordinary." That conversation changed Claire fundamentally. She stopped chasing big clients afraid of Margaret's power. Instead, she focused on smaller companies, startups, family businesses, companies run by women and immigrants who understood fighting against established systems. Her first real client was Anna Martinez, owner of a regional bakery chain. "Thornton and Associates would never return my call," Anna said. "But you're here. Everything I heard about you from other businesswomen was incredible, especially because of the controversy. It means you threatened someone powerful enough that they tried to destroy you." Claire worked on that project as if her life depended on it, because it did. Anna not only paid her fee, but referred Claire to 3 other businesswomen. Slowly, the tide began to turn. Then in April came the blow that almost destroyed everything. Margaret sued Claire, alleging she had stolen proprietary information. It was absurd, but Margaret had expensive lawyers and unlimited time to bleed Claire dry financially. Claire sat in her office that night, the summons on her desk, and finally allowed complete despair to consume her. She picked up her phone and prayed. "I can't take it anymore. If there's a purpose in this, I can't see it. I'm tired of fighting alone." The next morning, she received an email from Thomas Brenner, editor of the Boston Business Journal. He was writing an investigative series on labor practices and consulting firms. "Would you be willing to talk?" the email asked. Claire should have hesitated, but something inside her said enough. She replied, "I don't want anonymity. I want to tell my story." The article exploded like a bomb. The truth behind success, how elite firms exploit female talent. Claire hadn't just told her story. She documented everything. Emails, performance reviews, proposals with her name removed, a meticulous timeline of 15 years of broken promises. Most devastating was when the journalist confirmed Claire wasn't alone. 3 other women had been in similar situations at Thornton and Associates. It was a pattern, now exposed for the world to see. Claire's phone didn't stop ringing. Lawyers offering pro bono representation, journalists requesting interviews, and clients. But the first week was brutal with hate messages calling her ungrateful, a liar trying to destroy a successful businesswoman. 3 weeks after the article, something unexpected happened. Richard Thornton asked to meet with Claire. In a quiet cafe, he looked like he had aged a decade. "I knew," he said, voice hoarse. "I always knew what Margaret was doing. I let it happen because it was convenient." My son Preston read the article and asked what kind of man I am. He pushed an envelope across the table. A fair financial settlement for years of executive-level work without adequate compensation. And I'm asking you to drop the lawsuit against Margaret? Since the article, we've lost 8 major clients. The company's reputation is destroyed. Margaret is broken. I'm asking for mercy. Claire felt anger boiling. Mercy? But then she remembered her mother's words. Revenge is like poison. It hurts the one carrying it more. "I'll consider it," Claire said, "but with conditions." Margaret issues a public statement acknowledging contributions I and others made. She implements transparent promotion and equity policies. And she stops the defamation campaign. Done. All of it, Richard said immediately. In the following months, as the settlement was finalized and the media storm subsided, Donovan's strategic solutions began to thrive. The clients who came weren't just sympathizers. They were people who saw in her struggle something they recognized in themselves. Entrepreneurs who had been underestimated. Women tired of glass ceilings. Claire discovered her true talent wasn't just business strategy. It was understanding people who fought against unjust systems because she had lived it. In September, Claire hired her first employee, Sarah Chun, who had been fired for not fitting the culture. "I can't promise it will be easy," Claire said, "but there will be transparency, real equity, and respect. That I can promise." In October, Fortune magazine profiled her. "Do you regret publicly exposing Margaret?" the journalist asked. "I regret it was necessary," Claire said. "But the public exposure?" "No, because silence is like slow poison. It kills possibilities. It kills dreams. It kills who you could be." What Claire kept private was a letter she received from Margaret. "Everything you said about me is true. I exploited you because I could. Because women of my generation learned to survive by becoming as cruel as the men who excluded us. When I started this company 35 years ago, I was betrayed the same way. My mentor used me for 12 years, then fired me when I got pregnant. Somewhere along the way, I became exactly who I swore never to be. You broke that cycle, Claire. You chose to build something based on integrity, not exploitation. You won not because you destroyed me, but because you refused to become me. Be better than I ever managed to be." Margaret, Claire read it 3 times, tears streaming down her face. Tears of understanding of the tragedy of cycles that repeat until someone has the courage to break them. 2 years later, Claire stood on stage at the Women's Leadership Summit in Chicago, looking at over 1,000 women, feeling something she never imagined. When people asked me when I made it, Claire spoke into the microphone. They expect me to say when I signed my first big contract or when the company became profitable. But the truth is, I made it the day I stopped asking permission to take up space. The audience exploded in applause. Her company now had 15 employees, all with clear paths to equity and transparent salaries. But what mattered most was the culture she had built. When Sarah came to her nervous about being pregnant, Claire said, "Congratulations. This is wonderful. You'll have full paid leave, flexible hours when you return, and remote work without judgment. Because I refuse to build a company where women choose between career and family." At the National Business Consulting Association ceremony, Claire finally received the Consultant of the Year award she had won in 2015, but Margaret had accepted without telling her. When Claire stepped on stage, she said, "This trophy represents every woman who has been underestimated, devalued, or told her dreams were unrealistic. I'll keep it as a reminder. Our voice matters. Our work matters, and we will never again accept being invisible. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. The real reward came in an email from a 21-year-old student. I was considering dropping out because my advisor said girls like me should focus on more realistic careers. But your story showed me I don't need anyone's permission to dream big. Thank you for being brave enough to tell your story. You changed my life. Claire read it with tears in her eyes. There it was, the true meaning of everything she had been through. Breaking chains, not just her own, but those of the women who would come after. That night, Claire looked out at the illuminated city of Boston. She thought about the 22-year-old girl so eager for approval, so willing to accept crumbs. The 37-year-old woman who finally woke up, broken but still able to stand. And the 42-year-old woman, she was now scarred but whole, tired but firm, and finally free. It wasn't waste, Claire said aloud. It was preparation. And now I know exactly who I am. She wasn't just a survivor of exploitation or a successful businesswoman. She was a woman who looked at unjust systems and refused to perpetuate them, who've transformed pain into purpose, who chose to build bridges instead of walls. When she lay down to sleep that night, Clyde Donovan, no longer the invisible assistant, no longer defined by other people's dreams, but simply herself, completely and powerfully herself, smiled. Because she finally understood the most important lesson. You don't need to wait for permission to become who you always were. You just need to have the courage to begin.